Republicans voted to expel both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, both of whom are Black. But what's more enraging is that Republicans voted not to expel Gloria Johnson, the white woman. This is racism and fascism happening before our very own eyes, and it feels like we're living back in the 1960s or in this really dark place in American history. But this is exactly what the Republican Party has become. And it's time that all of us wake up to what's happening and vote like our lives depend on it. And I have a lot more to say on this, but my guest today is going to help me understand what this says about the Republican Party and what to do going forward. And he is Rick Wilson, who of course needs no introduction. Rick, it's so great to see you.
Victor.
It was like such a dark moment in our history.
Well, thanks for having me. And I have to agree. I mean, what we are watching right now in places like Tennessee, in places like my home state of Florida, we are seeing Republican supermajorities exercising authoritarian power and engaging in the raw abuse of political power over spurious and absurd grounds. In Tennessee, it is particularly offensive when their justification for expelling 2 African-American members of their body was that they didn't follow appropriate decorum.
Yeah.
Well, look, I believe decorum is important, but I also believe that people elected representatives have a right to speak passionately and freely. And the fact that we are seeing a response to this by expelling them, when you have members of the body who were never expelled, who were child predators, you have members of the body who are under indictment for fraud. You have members of the body who are under federal and state investigation. You have a member of the Tennessee legislature who peed on the chair of another member and they didn't expel him.
Yeah.
This is a raw abuse of power. This is an evolution from what was the old Republican Party, which claimed at least to believe in limited government and individual responsibility in the Constitution and the rule of law. And it has evolved into a Republican Party where you have people like the folks in the Tennessee legislature who are expelling these members. So you have people like Ron DeSantis in Florida, who has decided he's going to declare war on private companies that don't agree with his Don't Say Gay bill. You've got an expanding sense in the Republican Party that they're going to not only use their authoritarian power, but they're going to revel in it. And look, the racial component of this is not terribly well disguised. It's not real subtle. They did everything but use the word uppity to describe these 2 members. They did everything but use the N-word to describe these 2 members. And I may disagree with them philosophically. I don't care. They had the right to speak on an issue that was important and pendant in that moment. It was an issue that it was dividing the state and people cared about. And again, it's not just about the issue, whether you're for or against gun control. It is about whether or not elected representatives are going to be able to reflect the values and voices of the people who sent them to the office.
Right.
In a place where it is controlled by the Republicans, yes, but there are still Democratic voters who elected those members. And by the way, the good news is they're both coming back.
Yeah.
They're both coming back. There's no question in my mind about that.
So I want to drill down into something that you said, because, we talk about the demographics of these 2 people who they expelled. They're both Black, but they're also among the youngest in the Tennessee state legislature. And it feels to me like what we're seeing right now is this kind of threat that the Republican Party feels because of the changing demographics of America. And the thing that they do is get rid of these people. I'm wondering how you see this, because you know this party better than anyone else. And how do you see what's happening right now and the threat that Republicans feel from a younger, more diverse generation?
Well, look, I mean, in Florida, they noticed that even though DeSantis won, there was a big uptick in younger voters in the last election cycle. And that scares the hell out of them. So what have they done? They're now making people who are registering to vote for the first time, and a lot of those people are college students, they're making them vote in person. They won't let them vote absentee. Okay? They won't let them vote early because they want to increase the friction and the pain and the inconvenience of having young people vote. They're going to replicate this in other states as well. You're going to see Republicans playing the same game. Look, the dirty little secret is almost all these voting laws come out of the minds of 2 assholes at the Heritage Foundation. Okay. They look around and they say, how do we make it harder for young people to vote? How do we make it more painful for young people to register? How do we make the ID requirements go up and up and up and up? How do we make it harder for African Americans and older folks to vote? This entire model of suppressing and repressing voter groups that they believe are threatening to them as demographic change occurs it's a fundamentally flawed model in the end. I think it's an amoral model in the moment we're in. And in a lot of places, they see that there's going to be a demographic alteration of their destiny very soon. Look, Florida is a state right now where the average voter is around 65 years old.
Wow.
That means half of them are older than that.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you've got this very top-heavy silent generation dying out, early boomers going away, and it's going to be replaced with a much younger version of Florida. And in the next 10 years, that will accelerate dramatically. There is a very top-heavy baby boomer cohort that are now in Florida in their mid and late 80s, and they're about to go. My parents are in that demo, so sad about that. But just from a broad perspective, so they're terrified. They're terrified of this change coming, and they're going to try to keep cheating the system and rigging the game and rigging the map so that they can keep holding power. The same thing you're seeing in Georgia. The same thing you're seeing in North Carolina, the same thing you're seeing in Missouri. You've got this game being played in a lot of different states. It is tremendously dangerous for a representative democracy like ours, for a constitutional republic like ours, to have people who have decided they're going, instead of trying to advocate for policy and persuade people to the rightness of their positions, that they're just going to keep rewriting the map and rewriting the rules and hacking the system in hopes that something changes for them demographically or socially that right now is not in the cards.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so important to underscore what you just said, that, what's happening in Tennessee right now is not a one-off event. You have things, in Georgia, Texas, Florida, where, they're acting these really draconian pieces of legislation. My question is, where are they going with all of this? What is their end goal? Because this doesn't seem like it's the end. It's just the beginning, which is terrifying.
Right. Look, there is a cadre of people right now who essentially are and I use this term with air quotes, the philosophical guideposts of the Republican Party now are not all those things I mentioned earlier. None of that Constitution, rule of law, restraint of personal behavior and responsibility, all those things that drew me as a young man to the party in the 80s are gone. And, strong foreign policy and free market economies, those things are all gone. They now are moving much more towards a nationalist populist position, where essentially what they're saying is, we want to restore this idea of a white Christian nationalist movement in America that has never actually existed as the majority of the country, by the way. Even when they think it did, it didn't. But they want to have a nationalist populist movement. They want it to be whiter. They want it to be Christian. They want it to not be capitalist or free market anymore. They want state capitalism and crony capitalism. They want to control what private companies do as much as they want to control what private individuals do. They want to set us back dramatically in terms of the role that African Americans play in our society. And they won't say it, but all their actions mark it very clearly. Look, they pulled back from this one, but in the state of Florida, DeSantis was pushing an education bill that even he had to pull back from it, but it would have banned Black sororities and fraternities at universities and Hispanic sororities and fraternities at universities in the state of Florida. Yeah. These people are not subtle. We know who they are. They're the Stephen Millers and the Steve Bannons of the world, and they are the intellectual architects of an authoritarian populist movement that is growing. It is still growing in this country. We cannot stop fighting it because it is still growing. And what the Republican Party has been eaten from the inside out. They have all the same old branding of the Republican Party, the elephants and the flags and all that. But what they're doing now is what you saw in Tennessee, what you're seeing in Florida, what you're seeing in Texas, what you're seeing in North Carolina, Georgia, elsewhere. They're pushing the boundaries. They're trying to drive the Overton window out as far as they can. They're trying to control education, to burn down higher education in the country and put it under political control. DeSantis has been very effective in that. They are trying to take the rights of women, and whether you are pro-life or pro-choice. And look, I am a philosophically driven person about the value and sanctity of human life. I believe in it across the spectrum. Yeah. I oppose the death penalty. But I am also a person who believes it's none of the government's fucking business
Yeah.
Now you've got women in Florida. They've now got a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. They are in the process right now in the state of Florida of considering bills. This legislative session is getting late on them now, but they want it for next session, which is going to criminalize Plan B. They want to criminalize advising women they may need an abortion if it's medically necessary. So you're seeing a very, very harsh attack on a bunch of areas where they don't feel like the people they're going to attack are their voters. And as I advise people in Tennessee, I spoke to a group of people last night on the phone in Tennessee, some activists there. And I told them, I said, look, you're in a tough state. You're in a red state. It's a hard hill to climb. But you better get out there and you better fucking register people to vote.
Yeah.
When I say register people to vote, I don't mean onesie, twosie, let's get a few here and there. I mean, you better beat down every door of every possible voter you could possibly register, and you better sign them up. You better beat down the door of every Democrat. And if they don't come out to vote, you need to shame the shit out of them.
Yeah.
This is a matter of life or death for people now. This is a matter of the Republicans are racing to a cliff where they think if they can cast us over that cliff, you can never crawl back out. And they're not fucking around here, Victor.
No.
They mean it. These are the people that I've known for 35 years of my career. They're serious people. They're not stupid people, but they are a lot of them who are driven by a philosophy now that is directed and created by a bunch of evil people.
I think one of the
smart people backing an evil philosophy, you got trouble.
Yeah. No, I think one of the biggest silver linings about this is that you see so many young people, I think, riled up and ready to, make their voices heard and take action. But I mean, when you talk about Republicans who are doing this, I mean, do you think Republicans are waking up to this and saying, enough is enough? Are they starting to see what this Republican Party has become?
You know what? It's interesting you say that, Victor, because at the Lincoln Project, we in 2020 had something we called the Bannon line, which was between 3 and 8% of Republican voters were persuadable away from Trump and over to Biden. After January 6th and the Dobbs decision, that Bannon line expanded to 7 to about 11%, depending on the state. Okay. It's early. Our research is just starting on this, but a lot of the things that are happening right now in Florida and elsewhere, in Tennessee and elsewhere, are opening the Bannon line up even wider, where Republicans are saying, I can't. This is not for me. Look, 20 to 25% of Republican women are pro-choice. 15 to 18% of Republican men are pro-choice. Dobbs was a nuclear bomb inside the Republican Party, and the damage from it hasn't really completely cooked through the system yet. It is still spreading. You are having professional women who are Republicans either moving to independent or non-party affiliated. You're having them, if they keep their Republican registration, they're getting really squirrely about being publicly facing on it. You saw in Wisconsin this week, there's a meaningful fraction of Republican women and upper income Republicans who said, I am not going down the crazy road anymore. I'm done.
Right.
And that's why we saw a victory for a more moderate candidate in that race. There are some, it is not enough. The party is still controlled by the Trump, Bannon, Stephen Miller wing of the party, and that's a shame. But the number is not zero, and it has expanded. And the trick for Democrats is not to say to those people, you have to come over and you have to immediately be a progressive on everything. You have to be AOC. The trick is not to do that. The trick is to say, look, we disagree on a lot of things, but we agree on these big things in the middle. We agree on autonomy. We agree on individual liberty. We agree on human rights. We agree that cruelty and insanity and conspiracy theories and all that, it's not good for America. It's not good for our families. Not good for our society. That's how you work it. If you try to force those people who are fundamentally conservative in the small c kind of way into a frame of AOC, Squad, Bernie, it will fail. They will run back into the Republican Party. And it's a tough place to be, because no one in this country, in our very siloed political society, wants to be alone or without their pack. Believe me, I know how tough that is. But there's an opportunity here for Democrats. It's a meaningful opportunity, and I think it's one that when you see examples that are as heinous and racist and revolting and repugnant as you saw in Tennessee last night, then that at that point, I think there are more venues for people to walk out of that door for the Republican extremism model, even if they're still fiscally conservative, even if they're still temperamentally conservative.
Mhm.
They don't want to be involved with things like Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, it was as horrifyingly retrograde and racist as anything I've ever seen in this country.
No, I mean, I think it's just, again, that kind of basic morals, those basic morals, I think, can really unite people now. And you kind of stole my last question, which was, I mean, what can people do now to really kind of push back against this? And I think my answer was going to be, I mean, voter registration, getting people to, go out there and register to vote. Is there anything else you would urge our
one
audience
other
to do?
thing, one other thing I want to encourage Democrats to do, even if it is hard, even if it is doomed, get a candidate in every single seat. File a candidate in every single Republican seat in Tennessee. Run on one thing. That this organization, that this Republican Party in Tennessee is now authoritarian. They're not conservative.
Yeah.
Run on one thing, that you're gonna work to actually improve people's lives, not just on culture war bullshit. But if they put a candidate out in every single seat, and yes, I know it's expensive, it's a pain in the ass, it's hard to do, but it's a nuts and bolts operation that Republicans have done in other states. In Florida, the way we took over Florida back in the 90s from the Democrats, we ran people in every school board seat, in every dog catcher. We ran in Florida. We have what we call mosquito control boards. We put people on every fucking ballot we could find. Democrats very frequently make a mistake in campaigning. They say, oh, we're going to support Beto, or we're going to support whomever at the top of the ticket. Beto's a good guy. Great. Okay, fine. Maybe. Sure he is. I like him. But they think the top down solves the problem. Bottom up solves the problem.
Right.
You start running people against every one of these fuckers in Tennessee, and they're going to be calling up the speaker going, hey, man, listen, I'm getting a lot of shit for this.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? Let's back off of this, because Tennessee is one of those states. It is a red state. Okay. My daughter lives there. It's a red state. Here, it is what it is, right? But that doesn't mean you don't have a fighting chance, even in a red state. Okay. Look next door at Brashear in Kentucky. It's a red state. He's won. He's done a good job at it. There are ways to slice this apple. And it's a job that needs to be done, and a task that needs to be taken on. And I think a lot of young voters are the ones to take it on. Mm-hmm. But run somebody in every single seat in the state house and state senate, whether they have budget or not. Okay, they can still go out there and push message and be on social media and at least pose a challenge. A lot of these Republican candidates are fat, dumb, and happy. They haven't had a real campaign against them in 10 years. And you know what? You pick off one or two, and I can tell you one thing about Republicans. I know we're short on time. They're herd animals, okay? They're herd animals. They follow the pack. And the minute they're all sitting by the edge of the water on the veldt in Africa, and the crocodile comes out of the water and eats one of them, they'll scatter.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to do. And young voters and young leaders are going to have to play a big role in that in Tennessee and beyond.
Well, the fight is only getting started, and as disturbing as yesterday was, I think it did unleash something that Republicans are going to regret for a long time. Rick Wilson, thank you so much for all that you do,
Victor.
and thank you so much for coming on. Likewise, thanks so much.
You bet.
Well, that was an awesome episode with Rick Wilson. Once again, I mean, you all know Rick Wilson from Twitter and elsewhere, and he's just always on fire. So thank you, Rick. But what happened yesterday was just so terrifying. And, the first thing I thought was, last week there was a Wall Street Journal graphic that showed how young people are becoming less and less patriotic. And when I think of that, it's not surprising, because you have literally things like this where 2 Black people are expelled, not the white woman. And it's, they're expelled because of what? Because they were protesting gun violence, because of, decorum. I mean, these are the things that young people are seeing happen before their own eyes, including mass shootings, climate change. You have, education skyrocketing, the price of education skyrocketing. So all of these things combined are really showing young people, like what is in America anymore? It's not that we aren't patriotic; it's that we're skeptical about a system that perpetuates white supremacy, that perpetuates making our lives harder. And so it's hard for us to be as patriotic as older generations, but we are still in the fight. And I think that's what, to me, gives me the most hope on all of this, is that no matter what happens and no matter what we see, young people are resilient, we are passionate, we are persistent, we are going to make our voices heard. And while we may be less patriotic, we still believe in, I think, the foundation of America. We still believe that everyone should have the same rights. And what we see from Republicans, it's they want to make our lives miserable, and we feel that. But what the translation is it's more passion, it's more energy, it's more activism. And I think that's what kind of gives me the most hope. Yesterday at the Tennessee State Legislature, you saw all of these young people afterwards protesting, fuck you, fascists. It was just such a remarkable scene yesterday at the Tennessee State Legislature that even despite all of this, young people are so ready to make a change, and they aren't going to sit back and allow this to be our reality. And I think that's kind of what gives me a lot of hope despite all of this, is that young people are still out there. They're ready to go and vote. And just like Rick Wilson said, these two people who were expelled, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, even though they're the youngest, they are not going anywhere. They are going to run for re-election. For all of us, something that we can all do is help their re-election campaign, donate money, make sure that they become state legislators again, because they now have a national platform, and I think they're going to raise a lot of awareness to why those down ballot races matter. Mallory McMorrow is one of those people who, when I think of down ballot races, I think of her, because she was someone who really stresses why those races matter and how Democrats traditionally have left those positions, kind of ignore those positions, overlook those positions. So I think, now hopefully this is as disturbing as it is, as dark as what happened in Tennessee is for our democracy. I think it's a learning lesson for all of us about what we can do going forward, what, our political power is, what we can all do, register to vote, go out there, make a phone call, do something about this, because it's going to take all of us to make sure that we can defeat Republicans once and for all in 2024 up and down the ballot. So those are my 2 cents. I know we'll talk about this a lot more in the days to come, but I'm going to let you all go because I know it has been a very, very long week. At least to me, it's been a long week. We had Trump indictment on Tuesday. We had, this happened yesterday. It's just felt like, we are living in like the 1960s or some really just period of American history that we don't want to go back to. But it's been a very tough week. I'm grateful for all of you for watching and listening. Again, it takes all of us to do something, and I'm grateful for all of you for tuning in, getting the information. Now go out there and act. It's going to take all of us, young people, old people together. We are going to create the change, and we are going to be the people that defeat Republicans for good. So thank you everyone again for watching. I'm grateful for all of you. Hopefully you enjoyed this week. You can find us here on youtube.com/Politicon every single day at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to share this with anyone who you may think would find this interesting. We need everyone to really just kind of get the news of the day, be educated, and take action. That's the entire goal of the show, and I'm grateful for all of my listeners and watchers. Thank you. I'll be back next week with more exciting guests, and I know we will be talking about a lot of exciting things, and you don't want to miss that. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Friday and weekend.